Hey, how are you?
I'm doing okay. You?
Good. I'm busy. I've made some progress on a number of fronts, but I'm still getting my week organized.
I'm busy too, but it hasn't been with this.
Same. I'm just rolling to it now. How are you, Jen?
I'm pretty good. Also busy, unfortunately not with this. Other things.
Yeah, same. But I have some cool updates I can give. So I still have more reading to do on the CRA resources, but I added some to the spreadsheet that I thought was pretty cool. I still have to listen to the full panel that I linked there. So I haven't heard C. Rob and Um, make it more quiet.
We weren't hearing anything, but it may help you.
Oh yeah, there's a giant road there, and the mic doesn't pick it up, but I was like getting blasted by sound. So I put a link in the notes. I've been playing around with that tool, not playing around, but getting the full data set. And I've made
Yep.
a couple of changes. One, to kind of capture a more full set of metadata from the releases. I have a working branch with a bunch of changes, and I'm working on a Jupyter lab or a Jupyter notebook to kind of like walk through the data set, to kind of paint a picture that is a little more full. But so I've made some progress there. I'll have changes that accompany that, working out some kinks. But I've also identified something that I'm for now kind of making a fake vendor folder under there, but I think we can spin out to a new library because it's a gap in the ecosystem that takes a GraphQL schema like the GitHub API or like the Guac schema that has rich metadata in it with all the descriptions for humans as well as other metadata, and creating a Parquet or rather an Apache Arrow schema that has all of that rich metadata as well as type information, so that then when results from queries come in from some sort of like job that's running either intermittently or just in general, we have automatic schema validation as well as generation of documentation that comes from that enriched Apache Arrow Parquet schema, right, for it, we're in a generic way. There are the various tools needed to do that are part of the ecosystem that already exists, like how to read and write schema for both GraphQL and Parquet, how to introspect them and all of that. But there actually isn't, there's a gap there. So I think that I'm just prototyping that library as a vendored component to the data collector now. But I think that we'll spin that out to its own library, just an MIT library. So for the generic nugget of that. But there is a little tool that runs now. I think the devil's in kind of like actually to your previous points, like, do we need to consider other scenarios like Docker images or other things like that? Were we to do like a full survey? But I think for what we need, which is just I can run this against the graduated, the incubating and sandbox projects and get back the data set in a usable Parquet nugget, you know, that we could, it's actually not that much data. Like we could even use Git LFS or something like that. But from that, you can then do all this other stuff. So that's the current status of that. Those are my updates.
Did you make any further progress on the tool to collect SBOM stuff?
That's the tool for which I'm talking about. Sorry, there's a link there, but the actual tool is here. Let me put it in as a separate link.
Oh, we have two sets of agenda.
Oh, do we?
That's fine.
Oh, hey, sorry, that's just a brain fart. Yeah, we did it at the same time, and I didn't look up.
It's fine.
It is deleted. Okay. Right.
We were also talking about converting the GraphQL to the Parquet schema. That's, I guess, something that you're using for the data collector.
Well, so yeah, when you make all these GraphQL queries, you get back JSON, which we can store, but then you just have like oodles of JSON lines stuff. So I think just having it also emits CSV as well.
No, that's fine. I just
so the idea here is just to make it accessible for all the other tools that we would want to use.
that's fine. I just I hadn't quite gathered that you were immediately going to Parquet as a tool for storing and analyzing this stuff.
It's a yes and
Okay.
it does JSON for now. So it's just like, there's just JSON and then it
It's
converts stuff
fine.
to
It was
CS.
just not what I was expecting.
What we're expecting. So I have the
I
data.
was expecting something that did a bunch of GraphQL queries, didn't save anything to local disk, and used a bunch of in-memory data structures to answer the specific questions that you had, or, create things in a certain format for export or whatever.
Yeah, well, what I was running into is like, okay, well, when we look at the actual CNCF graduated
Yeah.
and the full data set, it kind of gets pretty unwieldy real fast.
I guess I'm not sure what pretty unwieldy in your terms is. So, like, are we talking like 2 gigabytes of data?
Uh, sure. So you can run it right now and get the raw JSON,
Yeah,
and then from a notebook slurp in all of that. I just found it to be a convenience to drop it
that's
into
fine. I am.
and load it from there, and then use like whatever,
Yeah,
because that just kind of says like, okay, if somebody wants to load it into DuckDB, cool. If they want to use some command line
I'm
tool,
not objecting. I'm just trying to understand.
yeah, I was trying to make it more accessible.
Okay.
So that, for example, somebody else that wants to answer a question doesn't have to actually run the tool, which takes a little while to run and uses a bunch of
Mhm.
time and processing and bandwidth, and just like wants to answer a question. It's much easier to embed it. I actually envision like a GitHub Pages site, right, that can just hit this tiny little Parquet. I'm generating it now using Wasm, just a TypeScript library that is,
Yep.
I opted against using DuckDB directly because I wanted to keep it a little more open and pure. So yeah, I guess there wasn't more rationale than that. I
That's
added an
fine.
optional flag, and yeah. It's also much more compact. It's like much more tiny, and you get all the dictionary encoding and compression for
I've used Parquet before. I just uh,
but that's the current status.
yeah.
So, but the real status is I looked more deeply and said, what extra data do we need? And that's in that draft PR. I just plucked the schema, the repo query change. I also pulled in IDs, which I wasn't doing before, like actual GitHub globally unique node IDs, so that when running the tool locally, it makes it easy to not re-download the same stuff every time. That was missing in the initial.
Okay.
So just more getting it more ready for that, and then I plan to demo all of this against the actual CNCF data set on the 22nd. What's the other
Okay.
in terms of update from the previous security meeting for the community demo? So anyway, the output of all of this will be some answers to those initial questions we had just about like what exists easily today, but it also forms the inputs into loading this stuff, into Guac and dgraph. So in a targeted way. So I think that gets us to answers fastest and gives us something to talk about with when we reach out to the projects in the gap.
Makes sense. As I was saying, I have not done anything for this since the last meeting, so I have nothing to report.
I wrote up an old school hacking.md and included it in that. I think I included it in there. To give some flavor. I just didn't want to check in broken things, but it's a working in progress branch. So
Yep.
does anyone else have any updates or anything like that? We can make this a quick one today. I don't have anything more to talk about than that, unless you wanted to do something else. I haven't really done a lot with the project plan in the last week. I think everyone
We don't have Brant here. Brant was here last week,
right,
and was pleased to see that other people had made other progress and had a repo that he built a while ago that had his tools. So if anyone is looking for that, it's in the meeting notes.
yes, indeed. How are you doing, Carolina? Have you had a chance to poke around with either the tools or other stuff, or how are things for you?
Not yet, but I think very interested in the personal project.
Go ahead.
No, after you.
Oh, I was just going to call the meeting to a close, so that's why.
Yeah, I was going to say one last thing. If anyone's interested in the actual data, like from actually running the tool, I wanted to check first. Like, I'm happy to just even put that into a PR under the initiative in TOC. Like, once I have like the full data set in JSON form, if you like, it's just, it gets really big, right? So I was going to check in the Jupyter notebook that does the analysis of it, that someone can rerun locally and get the same answers, but not check in the actual data.
Yeah, I was going to say
that was the last thing I forgot to mention. So, but it would have like the, graphs and charts and, whatever I come up with in Jupyter.
Yeah, I think having a Jupyter notebook checked in without all the data makes sense.
Yeah. Do you think it's worth me making it so that you can just like open the notebook and go play, right? Because I effectively.
I mean, so one thing I'll call out is if you have the GitHub API installed, you can get a GitHub token.
That's what I'm doing now. I have a
by-
token and an end file, and I have instructions on how somebody can run the tool.
Oh, I was just going to say, you can say, export GitHub token equals $ open paren GH auth token close
That's
paren.
what. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now is a .m file with instructions on, it comes with a template, like put your token here, right?
Yeah.
And then like if they want to, they can run it against the GitHub API. That's the approach I've taken thus far. So yeah, same thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have like two more levels of machinery than I was talking about.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No. Yes. But also do that. It's just but yep. Okay. Yeah. So right. Does it, so in terms of the actual data though, like I assume it's fine to do that. Like I think we could just check in data, right? But is there some kind of, again, it's the TOC repo. Is there some sort of open sourcey, like this is data and we can't check in like broad CSVs and stuff? We do elsewhere.
I mean, my concern with checking in the data is that it's going to go stale quickly.
Right.
And so I would avoid doing it for that reason.
No, by checking the data, I mean alongside with what generates it, which can be wrapped in a CI job. But that's what I mean. Like we very quickly get to like, I don't want to check in the data if I can't keep it up to date. When I say checking the data, I mean like CI runs, but then that CI running on TOC repo, and I don't know, like, is there a budget? Can I just do that? So
I would just check in the notebook without the data in it.
Okay. Sure.
And then everybody can fetch the data. If you say, oh, it takes, an hour and a half to fetch the data.
Oh, no, it doesn't take anywhere near that long.
Then I would say, okay, we should figure out a place to store that. But if it's like 5 minutes or something,
Yeah. Not
then
even.
like
Okay.
everybody
Cool.
gets their own GitHub API quota and it refreshes every hour.
Yeah. It's like,
Not a resource that we
yeah,
especially
you
need.
get 5,000 an hour, and it's nowhere near that. So
Yeah.
okay, cool. What one thing I did learn, if anyone is a nerd for this, is you kind of you have two right now. I have like, for a repo, call this. Now I could write a query that is much more complicated, right? That says like, okay, for all repos, uh,
Mhm.
but it quickly gets hard for a human to understand what's happening, and it becomes like a rat's nest of GraphQL fragments. So, I'll just say I have made a dumb optimization that I am not trying to do the multi-repo query, even though as we fan out, it'll be necessary. But I think um, uh, a first pass so that we can figure out like uh,
Yes.
what to do next is
I think that you are finding differences between the theory of GraphQL and the
Oh,
practice of
yeah,
GraphQL.
no, I'm keeping it isolated to like give me this thing, and then from it I generate a
Yes.
type SDK, and now I have like a full rich thing in terms of typed artifact along with the data to play with. But yeah, to do too much in it is a path of doom. You know.
But it encourages you on that path. It says, look at this pretty path.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously there's pagination, but yes, if it's
Yes.
interesting, we could have a nerdy tech talky time
Well,
about
no,
it, and I can bring
my
some
concern
examples.
is
And
mostly
but I don't think that's off topic. I think.
you've introduced tricky optimization problems on both the front end and the back end in terms of fetching the data.
Well, yeah. Again, we
Yeah.
can talk. It can easily be wrapped in something else. I'm just saying for this
Yeah.
initial
Yeah.
phase of work, I'm not trying to complicate it so that it's a little more easy to
I am in favor
understand.
of not complicating things.
Yeah, and it's really not that much data, so it kind of doesn't matter. Right.
That's also
If we
a
turned it
point
to
I've been
all of
trying to
open
push.
source on the internet, that's a different question, obviously.
But that's not what
Um,
we're talking about.
that is not, no. So, okay. So I'm glad that we're clear on scope. All right, that's it. That's all I had. Have a
Yeah.
great week, I guess, everyone, if there's nothing else. Thanks for